I now call the September 5th, 2024 Senior Citizens Advisory Board meeting to order. Has this meeting been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law?
It has.
Thank you. Would the Deputy City Clerk call the roll, please?
Chair O'Rourke Cameron.
Present.
Vice Chair Weinstein Hall. Excused. Member Padaratu.
Present.
Member Galati. Excused. Member Mosdeen.
Present.
Member Drum. Excused. Member Lee.
Present.
Member Graham.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Deputy City Clerk. Item number 3 on the agenda, public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Seeing and hearing none, item number 4, for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the special meeting of July 11th, 2024. Do I have any amendments or a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes or any amendments? Don't be shy.
I motion this.
Can you put your speaker on for the record? Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth Federative, the member. I motion this agenda. It's this presentation. Minutes from, oh, I forgot about that part. When was it? The July of 2024. Good. Okay, I accept the motion as it is of July. I motion to accept the minutes as they are for July 11, 2024.
Thank you. We have a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5, presentation by Mark, I don't know how to say your last name properly, Lashin, Nevada Secretary of State Deputy for Elections, and Sabrina Hagen-Finks, Language Access and Voter Education Program Officer regarding voting information and practices for seniors, all wards. Would you state your name for the record, please? Thank you.
It's on? Oh. Oh, perfect. In that case, good afternoon. My name is Mark Volashin, that's spelled M-A-R-K-W-L-A-S-C-H-I-N, and I am the Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, here today on behalf of Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar to provide a presentation about the upcoming general election. I'm joined today by my colleague, Ms. Sabrina Hagen-Finks, who oversees the Language Access Program for the Elections Division in the Office of the Secretary of State. Thank you first and foremost for allowing us to come speak with you today about the upcoming general election. There are a few key dates we will highlight and some opportunities for voters as well that we want to make you aware of. Before we begin, though, I'd like to start by stressing the information we are going to provide today is purely factual information about how the general election will be conducted and the timelines associated with it. That's it. If you or your constituents have any questions or about a specific candidate or political party, please direct those questions directly to that candidate or political party, who are in the best position, of course, to answer those questions. So to start, and again, I want to frame this as an understanding, or rather to provide an understanding about the general election, because there are some key dates people think of. Sometimes folks realize or think about specifically the general election date being November 5th, but really there's far more to it, which is why I'm going to provide some dates for your awareness. So first and foremost, military and overseas citizens. Again, a number of the residents of Las Vegas have family and friends who are either overseas citizens or are in the active duty forces of our armed forces. Those individuals who are overseas or in the active duty military will be getting their mail ballots sent to them pursuant to federal law starting the week of September 16th and not later than September 21st, which is rapidly approaching. Second, there's an online system affiliated and initially created for military and overseas citizens called the Effective Absentee System for Elections, or EASE, available at nvease.gov. That system that originally was made for those military and overseas citizens has also been expanded by use by our legislature to include tribal voters who live on a colony or reservation, or voters with a disability. Let's see here, and that will be on and available for use no later than September 20th as well. And again, that system, particularly for those individuals who are voters with a disability, is an excellent and legal and secure alternative if somebody is interested in perhaps voting from the comfort of their homes using an ADA compliant system. Out-of-state voters, their ballots will be mailed to them. Also, it varies slightly by county, but closer to September 16th to the 26th, with the no later than date being the 26th. And then in-state ballots, for the rest of us here in Nevada, we were receiving our ballots, again, varies county to county specifically, but starting roughly October 6th and continuing through October 22nd. So beyond that, and those are the mail ballot timelines really, early voting begins on Saturday, October 19th and runs through Friday, November 1st. For the in-person voting opportunities. And I know, having worked very closely with the registrar of voters here in Clark County, Lorena Portillo, that her and her team have gone above and beyond to ensure that voters have access across the county. Election day, as I mentioned previously, is November 5th. By law, the polls are required to be open from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. For in-person voting opportunities. And for those that are interested in dropping off their mail ballots, they can do so also at ballot drop boxes that are available also across the county. And those dates and times are available both on the Secretary of State's website as well as the Elections Department for Clark County's Elections Department. Beyond Election Day itself, though, and this is something I think it's worthy of note, especially as the number and the percentage of voters across our state continue to increase in the percentages of voters who use mail ballots, there's a little more to the process that I want to highlight just to make sure that everyone's aware, and certainly if you have constituents who are interested in using or mailing in their mail ballot that they're aware of. When you mail in a mail ballot, you'll remember on the back of that ballot envelope itself, you're required to sign it. That signature is compared to your voter registration when it arrives at the registrar's office here in Clark County. If there's any question about that signature, the Clark County Registrar's Office is going to reach out to that voter, essentially flag and set aside that ballot, simply to say, we want to make sure this is you, and there's a question on the signature. Those voters will be notified by the means that the Clark County Registrar's Office has to get in touch with them. In some cases, it's purely by mailing address. In others, it will be text message or email, and we certainly encourage everybody to update their voter registration with the phone number and email to facilitate that communication. When that notice arrives, it will simply say, contact the Clark County Registrar's Office. We have a question about your signature. And it's extremely important that those voters that do receive that curing letter, that notice, reach out to the registrar's office because their ballot will not be accepted until that cure is completed. They can show up in person, they can do it by phone. There's a number of different methods that the voters, and the notice will explain in very specific detail how those voters can validate that that is their signature so that their ballot can be counted. And I mention that again, right, because Nevada's relatively new to the universal vote by mail, having only changed after the 2020 emergency, and the 2021 legislative session codified it permanently going forward. And so because of that, some voters I've talked to mailed their ballot in and didn't realize there was that sort of follow-up. So we are trying to, again, draw attention to that so that individuals who mail their ballot in and then immediately go off on vacation, are aware that there may be a continuing part of the process. That signature curing process can occur up to the 6th day after the election. That's important as well. So if you don't receive that curing letter until after the election, that's acceptable, but just understand again that November 12th, because of course the 11th, Veterans Day, is a federal holiday, That deadline's been extended to 5 p.m. on the 12th to conduct that curing. So beyond that, there's a number of other additional dates and times affiliated with the election, and I'll mention the points of contact both now and later. But if anybody has questions on the timelines that I've mentioned, or would like to hear them again, of course, they are located on our website. The Secretary's website is nvsos.gov, nvsos.gov, and we can be reached both at our phone number, 775-684-5705, or by our email at nvelect, that's nvelect, @sos.nv.gov. At this time, though, I would like to turn over the presentation to Ms. Hagan. Thanks.
Good morning and afternoon, and thank you for having us again. I would like to, sorry about that. I would like to reiterate the availability of the Nevada Ease system, nvease.gov. This will be turned on and available for use by September 20th and left on until the polls close on Election Day at 7 p.m. It is available for use by active duty members of the United States Armed Forces, their spouses, and their dependents. Nevada voters who are outside of the country but not out of the state are available to use that. Nevada residents with a disability and tribal voters who live on a colony or reservation in the state also have the availability to use that system. Couple things with regard to ballot questions. On the November ballot, we have 7 ballot questions, statewide ballot questions, I should say. Typically, they are quite lengthy in nature, but the Secretary has directed to make sure that specific questions really have avoided the legalese, the heavy text, to make it palatable for us. So please make sure that when looking at specifically, you'll notice in questions 6 and 7, you should notice the difference. Of the questions 1, 2, 4, and 5, they were provided to us by the Legislative Council Bureau, and question 3 was pulled exactly the same as it was presented in the 2022 election. So we want to make sure that the constituents check that out. Overall, the initiative is really to help voters better understand the content. Gets a little fluffy in there, gets a little extra. We've also taken some efforts to translate ballot question information into a number of different languages to make sure that we respond to the various language needs of the constituents here in this state. Additionally, language access, going into that translation, this year, the Elections Division began with a language access program that really takes the time to take some of the consistent information that has traditionally been in English and translate it into languages that are reflective of our population here in this state. That helps to essentially, hopefully, make sure that people have the content that they need in the languages that they understand most easier. That content is currently available on the NVSOS site, nvsos.gov, and there is, as you look for 2024 election information, there is a language access page. Quite a bit of information in, I believe, 6 languages. And we also have opened up a teleinterpreter, I want to say a hotline, but it's free to constituents. It's also free to counties, and it avails translation services for over 200 languages. That hotline connects directly to an interpreter who collects to the subject matter experts in the Secretary of State's Office Elections Division so that people can get their questions answered in the language that is best for them prior to and during the election. So by all means, please make sure that you access those resources. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Sabrina. And Chair, there was one last item that I wanted to mention, specific to the information that you provided prior to this meeting as well. The Secretary Aguilar has been working very closely hand in hand with the county election officials across our state to implement a legislatively required top-down voter registration and election management solution. This solution that just went live in the last week, actually, is going to greatly enhance both the data available for voters across our state as well as the transparency. And that is something that I know, again, looking at the information that, Mr. Peraza provided to you, that you've provided to me, is going to be right in keeping with, both the Secretary and clearly Mr. Peraza's understanding. Seniors vote, and the information and the transparency and the security is equally important to them as it is to Secretary Aguilar. Part of the reason why he asked the both of us to come down here today to present to this board. And again, if I may, just to reiterate, again, information that we've presented is also available, again, at nvsos.gov, 775-684-5705, or nvelect@sos.nv.gov. That does conclude our presentation, but we are available for questions if you have any.
Thank you. Chair Rear Cameron, I wanted to just address, the reason you were asked here is because of our Ward 2 Representative Vito, who unfortunately couldn't be here, and he did give me his questions. I wanted to make sure that I could, and one of the things that he was talking about was something about the guardianship nomination registration program. What steps has the office taken to publicize, encourage, and facilitate seniors to access and use it? And of course, as I was reading this, I don't even know that program. So I'm not sure if you have any information on that program, because his question was, what percentage of the senior population in Nevada has so far used this registry? And I'm not sure if you're prepared, because I just got this information. But is there anything that you can tell us based on that, the guardianship nomination registration program?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Mark Voloshin for the record. I do admit to being woefully unprepared to speak to the guardianship nomination program. I do believe that actually may fall under a different division of the Office of the Secretary of State. Secretary Aguilar has actually got 8 divisions he's responsible for, and elections is the small one that I oversee and work in. But I will get some information to you about that question as soon as we're done today.
Thank you. And his other question was, what initiatives has the Secretary of State office taken to facilitate and encourage senior voter participation in both local and state elections, especially reaching out to those in the senior living communities? Because there can sometimes be barriers going into those. I know he and I've had this discussion because maybe they will not be so welcoming. Maybe their corporate office will say, we want nothing political whatsoever, even though it's literally just education and not candidate related. So that's why he's asking, what have you maybe done to try to facilitate and encourage and be able to educate in those areas?
Good morning. Thank you for the question. Sabrina Hagan-Finks for the record. We have reached out just briefly, to be really honest with you and transparent, to a few of the local senior centers to see what we can offer. And there was, as you noted, some question as to partisan efforts and how can we make sure that what we offer isn't candidate leaning, isn't party leaning. We are very open and available to have conversations with the senior gatekeepers, I want to say senior community gatekeepers, to determine what would be best. We still have a window of time. We would love to serve constituents, so we would love to hear some ideas or some options, and we can pull some things together. We are more than happy to come out and present, as well as bring some literature. So if you would just provide us with some information that you need or you feel that is needed. We don't want to bring you stuff that you are not going to use. So we are open and available and would love to be able to engage during this limited period of time.
Perfect. So on that note, Gregory and also the board, maybe we can look at doing something in one or more of our senior centers. I don't know because of the time constraints with, calendars already being in play, but maybe we can do something where we can utilize one or both of them for just, some basic information, just really stressing that it is nonpartisan. It's literally just about knowing and understanding the process and simple questions like we've had, today about programs and things that are out there. So if everybody's up for that, if you want to talk to your council person, and then Gregory and Olga, actually, with our senior centers, I think it would be wonderful if we could utilize these two wonderful people that are educating us today.
And Chair, if I may, Mark Voloshin for the record, there are also some suggestions that we've taken up to increase and expand the scope. You mentioned the senior centers as central hubs, but oftentimes individuals are unable to get to these locations or have other challenges with accessibility. Through the magic of technology and courtesy of 2020, I guess, we've gotten decent at setting up Teams calls, so we've done so with individuals across our state, even overseas or otherwise. So if there is a group or an individual, a family that is interested in getting this information, perhaps that is unable to attend, or along those lines that has perhaps a comfort level in a language other than English, we are here to accept that challenge and to find a way to provide them, again, just simple, factual information about the process to make sure that they have the ability to get to the ballot box so that their vote is heard.
Wonderful, thank you for that offer, that's amazing. I myself, Chair Aurora Cameron, will be looking into some of these senior communities that I'm in to see if that might be a better option, so it's not like having you in there where they're, concerned about the, partisan type discussions. Maybe it can just be, a Teams meeting, that type of thing. So I think it's wonderful. I don't think any of us really knew this was available to us, and that's why I've been working diligently to get you in here, even though I know it's crazy election time. John?
If I may, I think that it's also important to say that it's not a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So as you have gatherings, we are available. It does not have to be, and we want to be available. So please make sure that you feel free to take us up on that.
Thank you. And then on John's comments, I will make sure everybody gets a copy of the email that I received at 9:30 last night. Otherwise, you would have already received it. But it did have the information that I sent out, and it's also been given to the clerk so that we can make sure that it gets posted on the information that I also gave the two of you on the seniors vote. From December 19th, 2022, he pulled up statistics as he's always done for us. And it's interesting to see because it does show the amount of senior voters that we have and the real importance of getting the education out. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions? Go ahead.
Charles Lee, Ward 5. Could you give me a little information about that signature card update? I received a card through the mail and it wanted me to update my signature.
Oh, yeah, Member Lee, yes, thank you for the question. Mark Voloshin for the record. So the signature update, I really very much appreciate the timeliness of your question. Here's the original reason and kind of impetus for those cards. Prior to 2020, of course, Nevada was a vote by mail by choice. It was a no excuse absentee is the process as it used to be. After 2020, and the passing of a bill in the legislature during the 21 session, we now all receive mail ballots. Every active voter receives a mail ballot for every election that you're eligible for. The security key, one of the key components to that process, and there are a couple, so this isn't the only one, is the voter's signature. And what we've realized in looking at our data and looking at the number over the primary and general election in 2020, the same in 2022, and then even the presidential preference primary earlier this February and the June primary, that those signatures across our state continue to change. And this isn't specifically, though it does impact our senior population as well. Truth be told, my teenagers never learned cursive. Their signature seems to change every few seconds. So when they become of voting age in the very terrifyingly near future, they're going to have to update their signature pretty routinely so that security on the mail ballot can be matched against what's in their voter record. Secretary Aguilar, in discussion with the county election officials, recognized this as a challenge, and one of the solutions to help work through and prevent that need for a signature cure that I mentioned before was to provide a notice or a postcard to every active voter across our state, so that if you choose to and you want to update your signature, then you have a means to be able to do so. That can be done on the card and returned by mail. It can be done on the card and hand delivered to the clerk or registrar's office. Those are acceptable as well. It cannot be done If a voter chooses to not update their signature, and I remember my grandmother's signature didn't change once the entire time, from 20 to when she passed it about 89. But if you do want to change it, you're able to, and if you don't, that's 100% fine, and those voters will still continue to get a mail ballot in the mail pursuant to our state law. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Caroline
Thank you.
Mosdine, Ward 6. A follow-up question on that. Are those signatures being reviewed by individuals, by persons, or are they being reviewed AI kind of review?
Thank you, Member Caroline. Mark Flush for the record. So here in Clark County, the way it works is when your mail ballot gets returned, there's an initial machine that scans the signature and looks to compare it against what's on your voter record. That machine is actually set in a way where in the 2020 election, for example, it ejected about 70% of the ballots that went through. And from that point, it goes to human eyes. Only when it matches, and again, the system is the same, the company that made this machine is the same one that validates signatures for banks. Only when it matches does it continue to go through the process. And again, that was really about 30% of the time. In fact, we tried to test the machine once. I remember this was leading up to the 2020 election cycle. We printed out a bunch of signatures and tried to put them onto envelopes, and the machine said, that's too perfect. This is clearly a printout, it's fraudulent, and rejected it, and that was part of the test. That machine, the requirement is a best practice across the country, certainly in a county like Clark County that I think is the 12th or 13th largest county in the United States. The volume of mail that the registrar gets helps sort out those that do need to have human eyes on them. And when they do go to human eyes, it's not a single person, it's a bipartisan board. 2 different parties, Republican, Democrat, nonpartisan, and Republican, that sort of thing, to make sure that that the signature matches what's on record. I will say also that the records that are looked at, if you've had updates to your voter registration over the decades, all of those forms are looked at so they can say the signature, yes, it does appear that it matches the A or the I over the years to validate the signature against what the voters provided on that envelope. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and thank you very much for that. A question about when you're voting in person, whether it's at early voting or on Election Day, you do have a little bit of a signature there on a screen. Is there anything similar done? Because just from personal experience, my signature while I'm standing there, I know it doesn't look like anything that it should look like, but I got my little card.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Member Mark Voloshin, for the record. So it's an excellent point that you captured. The in-person voting process is slightly different. There is, in fact, and you've seen now in Clark County, the system that will be in use across the rest of our state. It's called a poll pad. Essentially, it's an iPad-looking thing that you have the ability to sign on. That signature that is signed on that screen also gets compared against your voter registration. I will admit, and this is something too, I think collectively we've realized as a society that I don't want to blame grocery stores, but courtesy of the grocery store signature thing that I never pay attention to when I just scribble on there, draw designs sometimes. Intuitively, I think when people sign on digital screens, it's not as clear as my official signature. When that signature on the screen does not match your voter's record, the poll worker is to offer that voter options to prove who you are. They cannot demand, I want to be very clear on this, they cannot demand a voter's ID, but a voter may present that ID. It says, here's who I am so that you can see it. It's the voter's choice. You can provide information that's of a personal nature on the screen. I want to make sure that's clear so people aren't volunteering random facts. They'll ask a birth date, social security number, and some other information that's part of that voter's record. Alternatively, they can sign an affidavit, or the voter can provide that identification. So the voter has an opportunity to prove their identity based if that signature does not match what's in the system. Does that answer your question? You're very welcome.
Thank you. Great questions, everyone. I also have a question that I get a lot when I'm out in the community with older adults. They, because of the nature of being home, et cetera, for many of them, And also for myself, sometimes I find this to be an issue. Do you know of any resources where you can get information and records on judges? Because that has been quite the issue in every county that I hear, no matter where I'm at. It doesn't matter where I go, whether it's Clark County or if I'm going north. It's interesting to me how I get that question a lot. Do you know anything about that? And I find that to be a challenge for me because I have to do a lot of digging. And for the average older adult, many of them, especially if you're talking above 70, are not going to be internet savvy to do all those searches. So do you know of any resource whatsoever or how we can assist our older adults in our community with the judges and ourselves?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Mark Voloshin for the record. Yes and no. Yes, in that, no, in that the Office of the Secretary of State does not provide information about candidates. And I mention that because there are states where the Office of the Secretary of State does provide a candidate guidebook, but currently under our laws, that is not a requirement, and there's no method or process in place currently. That being said, if I step into my Mark, the voter persona, I understand and can empathize. I live up in Carson City, and while we do not have the 73-page list of judges that Clark County did in 2020, I can empathize with the difficulty in learning more about voters. And while I applaud and recognize and agree wholeheartedly with the importance of learning about candidates before selecting somebody on a ballot, unfortunately, I don't have any resources necessarily outside of the ones that I suspect you have seen. There are advocate groups, community organizations, and otherwise that do assemble these sort of voter guidebooks, but I can't point to any directly right now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board?
Caroline Mosdy in Ward 6 again. I did photo this from AARP, and was wondering if you had something that was similar. Basically, it's 4 common election scams to avoid. And I thought it was a very interesting article. I was planning to share it with the board, but I was wondering if your offices had anything similar. Just a quick, the 4 items were scams. One here is about robocalls, saying you're not doing robocalls for on behalf of any candidates. Donation scams. Asking for donations. And as a cell phone owner, I get these all the time myself, and I think we all do. And then fake surveys, petitions, and polls. So I thought it was kind of interesting, but at the same time, wondering if there was anything more official than AARP offering this information.
Thank you for the question, Member Mark Voloshin, for the record. You know, we do have on the Secretary's website, nvsos.gov, there's a myth versus facts document that we update that addresses some of our more common questions. We're actually in the process currently of updating that for the general election based on some real-time events that are going on that we're trying to capture. That will also be, of course, translated to make sure it's accessible and available. If I may get a copy of that, though, I might look into developing something very similar. Because what you're speaking to, I think, also resonates very closely with what Secretary Aguilar stresses. You know, our elections are secure, but there are organizations and individuals who are trying to suggest that they are not. There are people always who are trying to exploit those that don't understand the processes or where to go to for trusted information. So the more that we can provide information like that, you know, in a number of mediums, in different processes so that the information is out there, the better off I think collectively we'll be in ensuring our personal security, or in some cases like that, you know, whether they're trying to exploit bank records or something else, as well as just reassuring the public that if you're looking for information about the election and you don't want a partisan lean, nvsos.gov. We have a tab that goes to the 2024 election information. It's got the dates, the times, the list of the candidates, just purely name information, and a lot of times they reference, you know, their own websites or emails, but yes, ma'am, that outreach and education is vital to ensuring confidence in our process as we move towards November 5th.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that as well, and I do have this copy. I'll hand it off to Gregory first, and he can figure out how he's going to do his magic, because he does it all the time for us. But I do have it on my email as well, so we'll see that you get it. As a person who, generally speaking, in the past has always interested in election security. I have always, or have been in the past, a strong believer in registration and proper election processes and things. I have to say that with the information that you've provided, you've really given me considerable confidence in today's system as opposed to the past or other states as well. So while I would always like more, at the same time, I would like to say thank you very much, and thank you to the Secretary, just in general, because I think you're really on the right track, and you're helping us out, whether we're representing seniors, whether we are seniors, or whether we're just part of the general population. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just one more question, and that is, there are a lot of seniors who may not feel comfortable with voting for any candidate in just one particular one, but yet they know who they're voting for in the rest. How is that going to work for both mail-in and in person if they just don't want to select somebody in one particular, like maybe they just don't want to do that particular senator, or maybe in, a county position, or, whatever have you? Are they able to just not put an answer on there? That was another question I had.
Thank you for the question, Sharon. More flash for the record. Yes, absolutely. It's called an undervote. And in fact, it's perfectly legal to turn in your entire ballot without a single vote cast. That is still voting under some very specific definitions. If a voter only wishes to cast a ballot for one individual office or for one candidate, absolutely acceptable. If they want to vote for the first one and then the very last one, that is 100% legal, acceptable, and that ballot will still be counted as much as anybody else's. So that's an excellent question, and we actually get that a decent amount as well. Again, it doesn't necessarily lay it out. We don't remember learning that necessarily in 5th grade, and it changes from every state you're in, too, frankly. So yes, absolutely, that is a process that is acceptable.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you so much for your time. This has been a long time coming in the arrangement with Secretary of State office so that we could get the proper people here, and I do believe that you were those. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an effort to get somebody here, and I know that Vito will be so happy when he listens to the recording. So we appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Item number 6. Report by Gregory Gray, Management Analyst 1, regarding senior issues received by the Department of Neighborhood Services, all wards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Gregory Gray, for a management analyst for the Department of Neighborhood Services. For the sake of time, I do not have anything to report at this time, but I do want to offer commendations on behalf of my manager, Jocelyn Blewett-Fisher, who wanted to praise Member Mosdeen, Member Padaretu, Chair O'Rear-Cameron, Member Graham, Member Lee, for their outstanding efforts in the community and what they've been doing. So she definitely wanted you to know that what you do in the community helps drive the work of our care coordination program. Some of the things we were able to address, some of the things we were not able to address. Some events we were able to do, some events we were not able to do, but we're definitely doing our best to make sure that we are able to execute that with excellence. We also want to congratulate Member Graham and Member Drum for their reappointment to the Senior Citizens Advisory Board. And that is all I have to report.
Congratulations. I'm so glad that everybody is out there doing their thing and that you get to stay on the board with us. Yay! I'm getting close to my time, though, so it's another story. Item number 7, report by board members regarding senior issues and events within their council wards and at large, all wards. And we have Ward 1, Nicole Graham.
Hello. Issues in regards to Ward 1, Ward 1, Nicole Graham, for the record. No issues to report for Ward 1. Just would love to encourage or speak up about the Charleston Heights Art Center. I think it's a really great opportunity for those to go and watch a show at a reasonable, affordable cost for seniors. I know they always want to get out, so this is a great opportunity for them. There's some great shows that I've seen that are coming forward. So just wanted to share that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like both from Ward 2 are excused. Ward 3 is also excused, so Ward...
Excuse me, Chair, Samantha DiNicola for the record. Member Drum is on the phone.
Oh, okay, perfect. So for Ward 3, we have Member Drum.
Hi, sorry for being late. This is Jennifer Drum, Ward 3. I do have a bit of good news to report. There, in one of the city council meetings, Olivia Diaz and the council voted for $22 million to go towards some new affordable living apartments in our ward, as well as renovating 116 apartments at the Arthur McCant Senior Apartments on 800 North Eastern. They are going to be renovating these apartments, putting in all new efficient appliances and just making them overall better and more efficient. That means it will be a lower cost for our seniors with all of their electric bills. So very happy that that's being addressed, because housing is not affordable for a lot of people at the moment. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Then another is I attend the First Tuesdays, and there's just really good information at your local First Tuesday area command. So I highly encourage everybody to attend. I know for October it's going to be National Night Out for Las Vegas. So please attend. There's a lot of good information there. That's what I have to report for Ward 3. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ward 4, we have myself, Chair O'Rear Cameron. And for me, it's always all the calls for housing and utilities, especially after this summer. So many utility concerns. So I highly encourage, if anyone is listening to this or has this issue in your ward, just have them call Nevada Energy. They do have various events there that you know, people within the income restrictions that can get assistance. And because of all the challenges right now, I am finding that with a lot of the people I've helped, they are doing a lot more payment arrangements and they're helping the people. So it's not just like, well, you got 2 months to pay or something like that. They're actually doing, you know, 6 months and longer in some cases. So I highly encourage them to just get on the phone and not be afraid. You know, don't be afraid, get on the phone, call, because they can make some workouts for you. And you may qualify for programs you do not even know. So wonderful to hear that news, Jennifer. I did hear it too at the council meeting, and I'm always excited when I hear about more housing and also making housing safer for our seniors. That's a huge concern, and it's always the top. And then also the isolation, I mean, there's still a lot of them, hence the reason we wanted to have the education today. There's still so many of them that aren't really getting out, doing activities, doing anything. So with that, they're not even aware of things. So anytime you are talking with seniors, it's really good to just remind them, you know, to be a good neighbor. And make sure that the neighbors, if you see that they are older adults, have information. You know, and just let them know, maybe give them your card, and if you ever have any questions, there's no questions too silly, because sometimes they're afraid to ask questions, so it's just really good to let them know. I'm really, I mean, I know we're in the top, and I know Nicole knows about this so much, but I am getting so many more calls with cognitive challenges. So many. We're already in the top states with this, and I think it's just good for us to be mindful that there are red flags. There are things that you can see just in stage 1, and that we shouldn't ignore them when we see that with our own family, our friends, whatever have you, because it does become a risk, especially if they're living alone, as they start to, and you don't know how fast anybody's going to go, as I know Nicole knows. So in other words, when I say go, I mean from stage to stage. So you could think, well, they're fine, but then something can happen where it gets a little worse, and that is just not good for aging in place, and there's so many things that can be done. And it's just amazing to me how many calls are coming through with challenges for family because they don't understand or know what to do with it. And there are a lot of resources, so I encourage everyone to contact us as board members, and also Greg with the city and our health and wellness team. Safety concerns. I'm sure we can all vouch for that, right? I mean, it has gotten so different now. and seniors are obviously a huge target. So I encourage also to go to the first Tuesdays. I actually had an opportunity to be in an event with one of the commissioners, and while I was there, I talked to a gal from Metro, and I told her that I would love to have, even one of them here to speak, because they would like to work with us to get the word out more, because they put this on their sites and they may have, something quickly on the news, but they're not getting the attendance and everyone involved that they would like to. So that was actually a request of us, is to help get that information out there as best as we can. Make sure they know about any of the events, whether it's the National Night Out, the first Tuesdays, anything that they're doing to really help them get that information out there to the older adults. That was the request. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it there. And
Caroline Mosdeen for Ward 6, if I can just be asked to take out of order for a comment that you're making. My understanding is that First Tuesday, which we usually attend at the Northwest, has been virtual, was virtual this week? I think so. And I believe it's until December. So just so that in case folks who are listening want to make sure, I'm not 100% sure of those dates, but you would want to follow up and not make the trip out. And the follow-up about the number of people who attend. Let me just tell you, the last one that I went to, which was the canine unit, it was more than standing room, it was tighter than standing room only. And it's interesting how babies and animals bring people out. It really was exciting because it was a wonderful evening. Although the others have been exceptional as well, but this one was so darn well attended, you couldn't believe it. Thank you.
I love it. I wasn't able to make that one, so that's really nice to hear. And yes, they do have some differences because of the National Night Out, and then it also will not be the first Tuesday in November because that is Election Day. So they'll be back to their regular schedule. But we do have, I forgot to bring it with me, but we do have a town hall meeting coming up with both your councilwoman and my councilwoman. You have it, then I'm going to let you do the word report on that. And as far as the other things, always with each one of the wards, I highly encourage anyone listening to this to get signed up on your ward newsletter. Definitely get that, because you're going to get the emails and you're going to know about what's going on. That I do it for all the wards, actually. So I encourage, if you have a neighboring ward, get it for that too, because it's right next to you. And with that, I am going to now pass it over to Ward 5, Charles.
It's Charles Lee, Ward 5. I just have two things to mention. This coming Tuesday, September 10th, they have a Stop the Falls community outreach event at Doolittle. And that would be from 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they'll be focusing on the health of older adults. The second thing I would like to mention is open enrollment will be coming up for Medicare. And that is something that the older adults need to have some information on, opposed from regular Medicare and the Advantage plans. Because they all, a lot of times they confuse you on those plans. And I think we need to get out and kind of help the adults with that. That's it for me. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And on that note, yes, open enrollment will be starting, I believe it's October 17th, and it runs to the beginning of December. There are a lot of events during that time, so it is good for us when we see those, and I'll try to bring as many of them I can to the board as well to get to those. And I do want to say on that note, too, that not all plans are alike, so if anyone is listening to this, please make sure that you if you want your same doctor, you may make that known. Make sure they know about your prescriptions. Make sure they know your world. Because I get the complaints after open enrollment all the time about the fact that they were put in something. And a lot of times it's because some of these now have a lot of perks, right? Like they may have a card that you can use. They may have whatever have you that, it's kind of like that shiny piece of candy to a little kid. Or a toy to a dog. So you want to make sure that your stuff is covered first before you go for the shiny items. Pretty please. That's going to save you a lot of grief in the long run. But I'll definitely make sure that everybody knows about some of these events, because the only ones I will tell you about are what I call Deanna approved and screened, because I've been doing this too long and I've seen a few things. And we'll just leave that there. Ward 6, we have Caroline.
Thank you very much, Caroline Mosby in Ward 6. I'll start with the last thing that Dan was talking about, which is a combination of Ward 4 and Ward 6 for the town hall meeting. It is on Thursday, September 26th, from 5:30 to 7:30. It is at the Northwest Area Command, which is on Cheyenne between the 95 and the 215. And basically, the quick summary of it is that it's bringing law enforcement and the community together. So that is a very valuable evening. Also, again, for coordination, there's a document shredding event, which is going to be on Saturday, September 28th, from 10 to noon. It's at Knickerbocker Park on Durrell Lane, and that is a Ward 4, Ward 6 combo as well. So please bring your shredding documents there. As we approach 9/11, there are a few memorial services and events that will be held. I have one directly here in front of me that I'd like to bring to people's attention. It's the Las Vegas 1013 Club Memorial for the Victims of 9/11. It is actually being held on Wednesday, September 11th, from 11 to 1 at Bruce Trent Park, which is on Vegas Drive. And I can't believe it already. As a former New Yorker, I was in New York at the time, but it's come and join us for the 23rd anniversary memorial for the victims of 9/11 and the attack on our country. And not only those victims, but the many victims after who worked on the location. I believe the comment is that we've now lost more people from the problems and the fumes and the problems that were at 9/11. So it's really for all of the families. And because we have so many families that have moved around the country, it's interesting. We don't only need that memorial in New York, we do need it all over the country. And it's wonderful to hear that we're going to have one here on the day. Now, I know I believe it's the following Saturday. I'll have to look that up. But there is another part of a memorial at Floyd Lamb Park, which is not only to do some work at the park on behalf of, I guess, the raised vegetable beds, where we'll have some of our volunteers working on that, but also to have flags and things of that sort, which will be put out in honor or memorializing the victims of 9/11 and thereafter. So thank you.
Thank you. And also with Ward 6, we have Elizabeth.
Member Elizabeth, I don't have much to report about the last 2 months. I was out of country traveling, but I did get an opportunity to volunteer with Helping Hands of Nevada, and I worked with in their food pantry to serve the community. So I like their services. They were able to come to our homes, and if there are minor repairs or some replacement of whatever in appliances or something like that, they are willing to do that. That is one service they're extending. And some of us got the Ring camera. Even my neighbor got it. I recommended that. So that is a free service they did, and they have more things available for us. And I was able to convince my neighbor, 82-year-old lady, to join Senior Citizen Center of Centennial Hill. She said, I love it. Why didn't I listen to you? So if we have a neighbor who is not getting out of the house, we need to take some attention. I said, I'll take you, I'll sign you up. But she said, I know you're busy, but I will go. And finally she did, and she said, I'm going now. So, a little bit of work we're doing for others, instead of only speaking, doing something that make action speak more. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's actually very, very much. You said that's it. I'm like, that's actually a lot when you're helping people, get out. That's huge. That's what we've all been talking about for so long. Item number 8, discussion for possible action regarding next steps and future meeting topics of the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, all wards. Is there any new information? I know we already have a running list that Greg has. And as far as meeting topics moving forward, I do have speakers for the next meetings, one of which is the Ombudsman's Office that I will be confirming. Because they have recently got a lot of new hirees, and they're really out in the community, and I think it would be good for everyone to know and understand exactly what they do, because a lot of people don't know exactly what they do. And then the other one is just to make everybody aware that about this person, so the governor actually has an advocate attorney strictly for our older adults now. And so I'm working closely with her because of my position with the Commission on Aging. And it's really interesting because of some of the things that she's working on. I think it would be great for us to hear, especially because there are things that we run across all the time, whether they be HOA issues, parking issues with, handicap, I mean, just so many different things. And she's a one-man show, so she's got a lot of great information. So those are the ones. Does anybody have any other possible action or discussion?
Charles Lee, Ward 5. Maybe in the next month or so, we just keep in mind the voter education and the Medicare enrollment. Maybe that's something we can, talk about in the next meetings.
Does anybody have any other topics for discussion? Okay. One of the things I did forget to mention in my ward report is I actually have now been put into a position as chair for the Legislative and Policy Subcommittee for the Commission on Aging. So I would definitely like to lean on all of you as bill drafts come out so that I can just, better understand, for all of us from a state level and just for myself, what you're seeing in the community. So I would love to be able to have conversations on some of that. And number 9, citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. No subject may be acted upon by the board unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Seeing and hearing none, we are now adjourned, and our next Senior Citizens Advisory Board meeting is October 3rd, 2024 at 1 p.m. here in Council Chambers at City Hall.